Welcome, everyone, to the Intentional Life Summit. I'm Amy Nesbitt, and I'm excited to have productivity guru Megan Sumrell with me. If you had joined me in the previous Whole Wellness Mama summits, you have seen Megan because I love her story and everything she shares. And she is a former corporate executive turned entrepreneur that knows exactly how hard it is to juggle all the things. And she has taken her 20 plus year career in systems and processes and basically applied it to all things time management, organization, and productivity. So let's talk about all the things goals and planning, which is why it is important for an intentional life. So good to have you back, Megan.
Thank you for having me here. And I just love the whole idea of intentional life. And I think what we're talking about today is you won't have an intentional life without this. So it's thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm so excited. Many people are still meeting you for the first time. So can you share your quick story? I know I shared a little bit already, but can you share
Yeah.
how you came to where you are?
Yeah. So I certainly, when I was in third grade and the teacher said, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" It was not, "I'm going to teach women about time management and planning." I really thought I was going to be an astronaut. That newsflash, that did not happen. But I ended up in the IT space and worked there for over 20 years. Loved it, really focusing on software testing. And part of my career, a lot of it was all around, I had a ton of certifications and training all around process improvement. If there are any other tech geeks watching this, got very heavy in the Lean Six Sigma and Agile communities, and got married later in life, started a family later in life, and found myself when my daughter was about two, juggling work, motherhood, an idea of wanting to start a business, unclear what that was. And from the outside looking in, I was like the really productive person, right? My task list was long. I checked things off. I had my planning system I'd been using for over 20 years. People kept telling me how lucky I was. And I had a very pivotal day when a woman very innocently just asked me, "What do you do for fun?" And I realized I didn't have any answer anymore. And all of the stuff kicks in where then I end up feeling guilty because I'm like, I'm unhappy and I shouldn't be because I have all these things that I thought I wanted. But at the crux of it all, I'd lost myself. My entire life was in service to an employer, a husband, a daughter, family, right? And every day's task list was filled with things for other people. And I didn't even realize I'd gotten to a point in my life where I really didn't know what I did for fun, didn't know how to have fun, couldn't remember the last time I'd done anything for myself. So that just kind of set me on a path to say, "Hey, Megan, you do this for a living. Why don't you apply all the skills and knowledge you have to all of the things you're managing in your life to find a better way to do this?" And so that was about 12 years ago. I have now left corporate. I have built this business called the Pink Bee, and I teach all things time management, organization, and productivity through the proprietary framework that I have developed and now perfected over the years. And my wish for women out there is that if I ever meet you one day, I get to say, "What do you do for fun?" And you will have a long list of things that you can tell me.
I love that. I know from the moment we first connected, we really resonated with each other on that.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. And I think you already kind of touched on these things, but to live intentionally, we need to know what we want in life, right? And to be able to break down all the ways to get there. And that's why I'm a huge fan of the setting the intentions, the life vision, but then also the steps that need to align to what we want, and revisiting that consistently, right? So we're going to talk further about all of this, but others may feel like setting intentions, goals, tracking, all of that is ideal and it's a nice to have, but they just feel like they don't have the time to do it. So
Yeah.
can we start with goal setting and planning and why it is, in fact, really important, especially for the overwhelmed parent?
Yeah. And I love that you distinguish goal setting and planning. So many people are being taught that the key to everything is, oh, you just need to set goals. Setting a goal will do nothing but set you up for failure when a year later you're like, oh, yeah, I set that goal. I never did anything. Goal setting is important. We need to know what we want. But if you aren't doing the planning, the actual how am I getting there, well, then you're wasting your time with your goal setting. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about some of that planning part of it. But just as, let's say you're going on a road trip and you know that you want to, drive from New York to California. If you just got in your car and said, well, I'm just going to drive and I don't even know where I'm landing in California. I mean, like it would just why you're wasting your time. You're just aimlessly wandering. And so having a desired endpoint of some place you want to be, right? It is physical, mental, emotional, physical, whatever it is. If you don't think that it's important to plan out how you're going to get there, then you will just continue to squander the precious time that you have. And usually the more pressed you are for time, the more you feel like I don't have time to plan it. You are typically the person that needs it the most. And it's such a hard shift to go through, but this is why we usually start small. Let's pick something small that we can only spend 15, 20 minutes on creating a plan around. And then once you live that experience of having a plan to follow instead of just pinballing everywhere, that's usually when the light bulbs go off of, oh my gosh, this was actually a tremendous value of my time, right? You will save time in the long run if you take the time upfront to plan.
Yeah. I'm kind of sidetracking a little bit, but it is something that I've started doing for quite a bit now, right? Of in the morning, I check in with myself like, okay, what are the important things that like my things that are really important to me to do today? Like all the other things are nice, but I will feel good once I've done that, right? Like if I check in with myself in the morning, I remind myself, okay, this is what I want to do because of these things. It helps me just focus, and the day turns out a lot better because at the end of the day, I'm not going, oh, shoot, I forgot that was supposed to be what I wanted to focus on today, but I got sidetracked by all these other things. But
Yeah.
I love planning.
I do. And it's like when kind of back to that driving cross country analogy, or let's just say you're even just going to someone's house you've never been to before, that's 15 minutes away. I'm old enough that I can remember the days of like we pulled out the map, right? Or we had the map quest things where,
Yep.
you got the paper. And if anytime you're going somewhere you've never been before, you at least want to get some semblance of directions. Well, with the beauty of our technology today, like your plan is basically your Siri, right? You get in your car, you plug in the address, and as you're driving, it's like, hey, in about 500 meters, you're going to be, taking a right and then prepare to take a left. It makes that drive so much less stressful than if you're, unfolding the map and you're trying to wait, am I left, am I right? Which way is north, right? And that unfortunately is how most of us are trying to get to our endpoint instead of taking the time to create that plan that then just gives us those gentle reminders and guides us towards where we want to be.
Yeah. And it doesn't allow us to swerve off on tangents and all the distractions, right? Because you're going, oh,
Yes.
well, which one do I need to go on? Well, that one looks prettier.
Yeah. It's like, no,
Right?
no, no, this way, this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people may be wondering, right? Okay, Megan, Amy, that sounds great. And I've set, these plans before. I've tried to do the annual, the quarterly, but then I'm just overwhelmed by all the curveballs that come in because life is full of them, right? So
Yes.
it's hard for
100%.
people to stick to them, is what I've often heard. So
Yeah.
for those mamas especially, can you share why women are often overwhelmed and what's happening in our brains?
Yeah. So before we dive into the overwhelm, kind of back to what I first said on goal setting and planning
Yep.
are not the same thing. Goal setting is something that's an input into your planning. If you have in the past been taught, hey, create a goal and then break it up into little bite-sized chunks, right? And set your milestones. I can, by the end of February, I want to do this, end of March, I want to do this, but you've never layered in. Now let me look at what my calendar and life is showing me as the realities of my life to make sure that your plan for those goals is a good one. Usually that is the number one reason why people aren't hitting their goals. They think it's because they're overwhelmed. They think it's because life is throwing them curveballs. The reality is they haven't been taught how to create a plan that's taking into account all the realities of their life that then is a realistic one to support their goals. All right. So that's step one. Now, life is going to throw us curveballs. I can teach you how to create the most beautiful plan ever, but I personally have never made it through a week, let alone a year, without something coming in, right, that derails what I had put forth on my plan. Just as when we plug in that address on our phone, sometimes all of a sudden there's an accident and your phone starts going, hey, we're not going to be able to go that way anymore. We need to reroute and go this way. Now, if you didn't have the plan in place from the beginning, you don't know how to reroute, right? And that's what creating our plan supports us. So if I've got a plan, a realistic one of what it is I want to achieve, and I know how to build in time for life's curveballs, but yet even more come in, what the plan now supports is for you to easily see, hey, here are the things that are no longer going to be able to happen the way I mapped them out. And now you get to change your plan to absorb, accommodate, etc., the things that have come in. Now, the other reason that planning is going to help you with that is maybe as things are coming in, if you don't have a good plan in place when life throws you a curveball, women in particular, we tend to be people pleasers. We're going to go, okay, I'll take that on. Okay, I'll do that. Okay, I'll do that. Because we can't see the impact of what we're saying yes to. So when we have this plan in place and things start coming at us that we weren't prepared for, your plan actually very subtly kind of serves as a boundary sounding board for you to help you learn how to say no sometimes. That can be really hard for us to do.
Yeah. I love the layering in and having those boundaries because you're right. There are some seasons in our life that are really, really busy, right? And we know that that is happening,
Yep.
and yet we expect to hit these goals at the same time frame, or we
Yeah.
just don't plan accordingly. So I love that
No,
you.
and we're not usually thinking, if I'm creating a plan for the year and setting goals for 2025, right? And let's say it's December of 2024, if I don't know how to go back and look at last year and go, oh yeah, that's right, that, Maycember, it's a reality for a lot of us with kids, right? Maybe that is not the time to say, oh, and in that month, I'm going to finish this huge milestone for that goal. Maybe I need to realize that that's not going to happen in May, and I'll create a plan that supports that.
Mhm. And I love that you can plan ahead for things too, right? Because like for example, we had a big move, and so I knew I was not going to be able to do a lot of the things that I would normally want to do. And so I just
Right.
had to plan ahead, whether it was YouTube videos or, whatever it is for um, the things that I needed to do. So I love just being able to layer that all in together.
Yeah. And I think so many times people think planning is all about focusing on what can I do? What can I get done? How can I, quote, be productive? But planning also supports when do I need to rest? How do
Mhm.
I build in the time for, this vacation or for this downtime or for the summer months if you have to, do a lot more stuff at home over summer. So planning isn't just about let's get stuff done, because unfortunately that's the society that we live in. We honor an external view of productivity. It's all about protecting our time so that we can enjoy our downtime, enjoy the moments, and not feel so frazzled all the time.
Because we all know how we are when we are overwhelmed, and then we're trying to play with our kids for those special times, right? And you're going, "Oh my gosh, there's this I need to do, that I need to do," and you
Yeah,
just can't
you
be
can't enjoy
present.
it.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah. We just talked about there's a lot running through our heads, and we can't expect to remember everything.
no.
I don't really like the term mom brain because it's just, you know, yeah. our mom brains are great. It's just our brains are not meant to handle everything.
No.
And so that is why systems are absolutely necessary. And you are fantastic with systems. It helps us know what is and what isn't in alignment. We talked about the boundaries just now of how to set those right boundaries. Can you talk about practical steps for our moms of how to get rid of that overwhelm and start living in alignment with what we want for our lives?
Yeah. So first and foremost is we have to stop asking our brains to be the holding ground of information. And things are very different today than they were 20 years ago in terms of the amount of information coming at us. And especially if you're a mom and you're managing all the schedules and stuff for children, right? And they have different schools and activities and all of that. There was an interesting study, I think it came out in around 2018, 2019, that was showing, so the number is going to be a lot bigger today, but it was sharing the sheer volume of information coming at us through our technology, through our mobile devices every day. And the amount that's coming through ended up being enough to basically shut down a computer after a week. All right, that's how much is coming at. Of course, we're overwhelmed. Our brains are not designed to hold, manage, sort, file, prioritize, and hang on to all of that. But because we have it coming every which way, it's like it just gets stuck there.
Mm.
So, one of the first systems that is so helpful to put into place, I like to think of it as kind of like a coin sorting machine. I had one of these when I was a kid, like you dumped all the
I do
coins and you'd
too.
watch, like all the quarters go over here, all the dimes go over here. Is an idea of creating your own personal information repository.
Mm.
So, kind of like an old school file cabinet, right? So, as information is coming at us, rather than saying, okay, I'm going to have my brain, okay, brain, remember this, right? And you just asked it to remember 15 other things. As things are coming at you, you need to have your designated place to store that type of information that isn't, and one of those designations can't be the space between our ears, right? Now, what this also means is you have the right, when you've figured out where you want those pieces of information to live, to ask others to honor that. So, for example, my daughter is, Mom, can you remember? Mom, will you? And
Yeah.
I always tell her now that she's old enough that she has like an actual email account, I have told her, if you want me to remember something, you have to email it to me
Mm.
because I know I have a system in place for how I check my email and how I process it 2 times a day. And so if it gets emailed in, then I know I don't have to remember it.
Mhm.
And so now, and of course, she's of an age, she thinks email's stupid. I'm like, but if you want these things, this is the system I have in place for
Mhm.
you to send things to me that you want me to remember. And so if she chooses not to send the email, then the thing doesn't happen. And that's not on me, right? So there's kind of a two-step. One is, where do you want that information repository to be? What systems do you have in place? What tools do you already use? And then the second is, you have the right to then tell other people, this is how I process that. So, because I'm old and email works for me, even when I think of something I need to remember, I send myself an email. I'm doing it all the time.
Mhm.
So, the less you can ask your brain to hang on and remember things, and then decide, where can I put this when I am calm, collected, and then can sit down and be in a place to manage it.
Mhm.
That is going to be a huge game changer.
Oh, when you were talking about your daughter asking you, I'm like, I don't know how many times my child, well, both of my kids have asked me, can you remind me to put this in my snack tomorrow? And I said, you
No.
can do that. You can even go do that now, so you don't need a reminder. Or we got like a little Alexa device during COVID, for reminding about home when we were doing school at home and all of that when classes are, because both of us worked full time, right? We couldn't
Yep.
be there to remind them for meetings, or I mean their classes. And so I say, go ask Alexa to give you that reminder tomorrow. I don't have to be that. I don't want to be responsible for that. So there are a lot of different
Yeah.
ways in which
And
people
there's
can.
so much, like, I think that texting, DMing, like whatever chat tools you use, have created a lot of this overwhelm. Because what my daughter wants to do is shoot me a text to say,
Yeah,
could you order those pens for me? Because I mean, they need to be ordered on Amazon. I'm not letting her order on Amazon.
yeah,
Well, to her mind now, it's out of taught through the ball over, right?
yes,
For me, things will get lost in text because I read it, the notification is gone,
yeah.
and I'm not going to remember to do that, right? So this is why for me, what works is saying, no, you send me an email because then it sits in that inbox until I'm ready to go and do it. Because I have a lot of people ask, like, why not just use, that's what we have texting for. If you find that that's how you're communicating want tos and to dos with family, it's probably be causing overwhelm because the minute that text is read, it's gone, right? And now we're relying on our brains to have to remember it again. A text a texting platform is not typically a good information repository or system to put in place.
And I just finished reading this book, The Anxious Generation and How to Break Up with Your Phone, which is all
Mhm.
kinds of things of why technology is overwhelming us, right?
Yeah,
So I am resonating with
100%.
you on, on all of those points of how can we get off those devices? How can we figure out these systems that are very good ways for us, right? Like to your point, it is everybody needs to figure out what works for them. Is it
Yes.
email? Is it text? Is it um like a Trello or like any sort of tool
Yep.
that works or a calendar on your
Yeah,
wall,
or a
right? Where
physical
people
piece of
write things
paper.
down.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't have to be digital here.
Yes. Yes. So I love that. It takes time to figure out what that looks like for you, but it is
Yeah.
absolutely worth it. I agree with you.
Yeah, 100% worth it. And what's great is as you're testing differences, as you're testing what tools you want to use for your information repository, even the process of testing it is getting it out of your brain and somewhere else. And I find when I start feeling anxious and overwhelmed, because it doesn't happen often anymore, but it still happens. I'm a human being. I can always tie it back to too much is coming at me that hasn't been moved to an information repository,
Mhm.
right? It can even be sights, sounds, people. Like I'm sure moms can all relate to their times where just like, oh my God, everyone stop talking at me, right? And it's because I've been information overloaded without having the time to get it processed and put where it goes. And oftentimes, all it takes is 10, 15 minutes of that quiet space to get it out from all the places it's floating around and into its right home. And I mean, it's almost like a light switch flicks. So it's like, there's a reason why women in particular are so drawn to list making. There's a whole other thing about list making that's not good, but the benefit of the reason why we're drawn to it is it gets it out of our brain and onto something we can visually see. And don't we instantly feel better when we've made a list?
Yes. And when you can check things off. Yes.
Yes. Now a list is not a plan, whole
Yeah.
other conversation, but it's better than nothing at all.
Yes. No, and I love having this intentional spot where all the information is, right? Because when we do go to the planning of the week or the whatever it might be, it is all in one place. So it makes all of
Yes.
that so much more faster
Mhm.
because we're not digging for, oh, where's that paper that I wrote that one list on? And,
Yeah,
all
I've got the
the other
journal over
things that my
here and the
kids ask me
notebook
to
over here
do.
and the post-its over
Yeah.
here. And that, yeah, we can't have it floating in 12 different places.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why people say, "Oh, I can't plan because it takes so much time every week." But if it was all in one place, I love that.
Yes. Yeah,
I'd also love to quickly address things because things do change and they need to
absolutely.
change, right? And
Yes,
that's all absolutely
100%.
okay and totally normal. So where does pivoting and updating our goals, our intentions, our plans come into play? And how can we bring our family and support system in? Because when everybody's not on board with the plan, right, is really, really hard to take that time to get things accomplished or time for ourselves, which is also
Yeah.
part of it.
I mean, pivoting is always going to happen. Needing to replan is always going to happen. But if you have an original plan in place, that you can see, that's visual, again, not a plan between the ears, the replanning process is already so much easier. Because if you're holding on to, like, let's say it's a birthday party, right? And I've got to get this, and you're trying to remember all the things. And then all of a sudden, you have to change it by an hour, or all of a sudden the colors need to change or whatever. And then you go into pivot panic because you're trying to replan in your head. You can't see the impact of the pivot. That's why replanning feels as bad as it does. If you have a visual plan in place and now suddenly the plans need to change, you need to pivot. When you can see it, it makes it so much easier to go, oh, well, we can move this. This can be moved. So this is why having the original plan, if you know you need to pivot a lot, this is how that original plan is going to support you. Now, if this plan involves family members, the thing I used to do, which does not work, and I'm still tempted to do it sometimes, is to be basically the ringleader or the conductor of your family.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning I would, all by my own self, create this whole new plan and then come in and dictate it to the family. Well, now here's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, but I'm the one doing it all. So I know what's best. I know how to replan this better for everybody. And here's what we're going to do. And never has it worked. Not once, because they don't see it. They don't understand it. They're not bought in on it. They just feel like they're now being told something else. I don't like being told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But when someone can go, hey, here's a problem. Hey, here's the impact of this problem. Let's now talk about how we're going to solve this. I'm on board and I'm bought in. So the number one thing you can do is anytime there needs to be a pivot that is impacting other members of your household is to sit down and include them in that conversation. Even as simple as, because I know we're going to be hitting this with all the back to school stuff, like figuring out what the new school morning routine is. For
Mm-hmm.
years, I tried to create the routine for my daughter and wanted her to follow it. I just thought it makes so much more sense to get dressed and clean your room and all that before you come down for breakfast. And our mornings were a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, when it was, presented, here's the end goal. We have to be out the door at this time with these things done. What does this plan need to look like? Well, when she was empowered to say, I do much better if I can just eat breakfast in my pajamas and then go up and do all my stuff, everything changed with our mornings. And granted, that's not a replan example, but it does show the importance of everybody being on board and allowing to provide their input. Because I will say, when I do that, usually someone in my family sees something differently than I do,
Mm-hmm.
and they oftentimes come up with an even better
Yeah.
solution than what I would have replanned on my own.
Yeah. There's so many things that I want to touch on. But when we empower our kids, right, they can do so much more
Yeah.
than we give them credit for. And to your point, sometimes it just goes a lot better. And then we get that time back for ourselves, right? Because I need things to go a certain way for myself, right? And we talked about like I need to check in the mornings of what I have going on that day. I like having my alone time in the morning to just get ready by myself without children hanging off of me. Now my kids are pretty self-sufficient, right? They do their breakfast stuff, they get ready. They don't do it in the order that I would, just like you
Right.
said.
Sometimes I'm like, I just can't watch it.
Yeah.
I just can't, but so I just
That's
won't because we're
okay,
getting to
right?
the
That's
finish
totally
line and we're
okay. It gets
okay.
done. And so I think we have a hard time letting it go sometimes as
Yeah.
moms, but they can
And
do
we
it too.
do tend to be the ones, I call it the COO of the household. We do tend to, kind of manage and coordinate a lot of the load. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel like the whole, if I don't do it, it doesn't get done. I mean, I get
Yeah.
caught in that as well. But this is why the more we can share with others,
Mhm.
share the plan, have the conversations when something comes in. Now it's creating awareness with everybody as well. 9 times out of 10, they didn't even know I was over there, rejuggling and shifting and sorting. And so now you're bringing it in. Now it becomes a family,
Yes.
opportunity, and it really will help lighten your load.
Yeah. And they get really excited that they were trusted to do these things and they got it done. They're really excited. They're like, look, I'm ready. They're often ready earlier than I am. And I'm like, giving me the last 5 minutes that I told you I needed, which is fantastic. That's a whole different
Yeah.
conversation of empowering our kids. But we always like to end our talks by giving everyone a quick action or challenge to complete today so they start to see these changes happening and don't get overwhelmed by all the information that they had, right? So, what is your challenge for our mamas today?
Okay, well, I have something you can do today, and then I have another event that I think could be super helpful. So today, I want to encourage all of you to think about back to that information repository, right? How do your children communicate or even your significant other with you today? What tools are they trying to do? Is it verbally? Is it through text or whatever? And then ask yourself, what do you already use to track to-dos? What it might be an app, it might be a piece of paper, it might be email like I do, whatever it is. And ask yourself, where would you like this information to ultimately go that frees up your mental capacity? Make that decision and then start communicating that with your family.
I love that. Yeah, and we're going to share two, or I'm going to ask you to share two more things. One is you have a great annual event coming up
Yeah.
called Planapalooza. So I'd love for you to share
Woohoo!
all the details about that because it is a fantastic event, friends. And you also have a great freebie for everyone. So can you share
I
those two?
do. So the Planapalooza event, I only do it once a year. And this is where I actually teach my proprietary annual planning process. It's in October intentionally because as moms, good Lord, once November 1st hits, right? It's like, gentlemen, start your engines for the rest of the year. So this is your time to come and actually create your roadmap for 2025 with me. And I'm going to teach you how to plan the right way. There will be a little bit of goal setting, but it's also going to be showing you how do you layer in the realities of your life? How do you create, protect boundaries around those crazy seasons where you know things are coming, but you don't know what they are yet? It really is the only annual planning event of its type. And so it's 2 days, October 17th and 18th. Everything's recorded. So if you can't be there live, you get all the recordings. It's a half day each day. I'm doing a bonus Q&A on the following Monday for 2 hours. You can come ask me all the questions that you need. It comes complete with the full digital 100-page workbook that you will use with me as well, along with pre-recorded 6 guest experts who are going to be training on various things from digital photo organization to financial planning, all varieties of things to support your annual plan. It's an amazing deal, and all of it is for only $97, including all the recordings. So it's a life-changing event. Are you going to be sharing your link for that?
I will.
For
Yeah.
the event? Okay, awesome. So all the link is there. Again, you can get signed up. You'll get the digital workbook right away. Go ahead and block the time on your calendar, but then you'll have those recordings if those days don't work. And it's the only time all year that I do the annual planning.
Perfect way to start thinking about the next year and also reflecting, right? So
Yep. Oh,
perfect.
and the good little freebie that I've got for you guys as well. If you are overwhelmed today, right now, like if you've ever been in that place where the to-dos are coming at you quicker than whack-a-mole game, and you almost just get paralyzed and we get stuck. I've been there. We've all been there. I have a 3-step, what I call ditch the overwhelm process that I use anytime I'm just feeling paralyzed by everything that I am juggling. So I've broken down this 3-step process. It's very simple and easy. I've even got little videos for you, kind of showing you how I do it. And you can go grab that at theworklifeharmony.com.
Perfect. And we'll have all the links included so it's easily accessible. Anything else you want to share with our mom before we wrap up?
One thing, because we were talking so much about planning, and this sounds so obvious, but unfortunately, with most moms that I meet, we're not there. You deserve to show up in your plans for the year as much as your family members do. So planning isn't and shouldn't just be about how you keep everything in your household running, it also needs to include how you keep yourself fueled and running. And we're going to be talking about that in Planopalooza. And I think a good visual way of thinking about it is, people will show me, oh, I'm all planned, I'm organized, and they'll show me the picture of their dry board, dry erase calendar in the kitchen where each family member's got their color on it, right? And I'll say, where's your color? I
Yeah,
see your husband, I see all your kids. I don't see you on here. So you deserve to be planned and prioritized as much as you spend all that energy on your loved ones.
I love that. I am all for like mind, body, spirit, everything harmony, right? And so like I have my health things, I have my own work things, I have different things that I want to work on, plus of course family stuff. So thank you
Yeah.
for that reminder that we matter. We
Yeah.
absolutely matter, and we need to make that time in order to show up better for our family. Thank you, as always, Megan, for
You're
sharing your
so
productivity
welcome.
wisdom to keep us just sane in parenthood. That's that's all we want, right? Sane
We're in
and
it together,
thriving.
man.
We are. It takes a village. That is for
Yes.
sure. And friends, these talks are so, so valuable. I find value every single time I return back and revisit these topics. So if you upgrade to the VIP pass, you get to take all this forever, to keep it with you forever. Plus, you have access to exclusive paid speaker bonuses. And so take advantage of that. We want you to thrive in parenting. Take these opportunities to tell us how the challenges went. Ask those questions because we are here for you, especially during this week and beyond. We will see you back for more amazing summit speakers.